Okay, we are live. We are live, and I'm coming at you with five. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Gavin Richard Presents, only on my channel, GBoot2786. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are blessed and doing safe. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, you guys know this gentleman here. We have our special guest, Shawn James. Shawn James is an author and novelist. He's also with the SJS Directive. Did I say it right? I always mess it up.
Direct SJS Direct Imprint.
SJS Direct Imprint. And there's a lot going on in the world, but we want to welcome Shawn James. He's the author of the John Haynes series, as well as Eternal Night and the
ISIS
uh,
series
ISIS series,
and
yeah,
nonfiction like The Man Crisis.
and the Man Crisis, which is I have that book. You guys ought to check it out. Shawn, welcome again to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And guys, if you got questions for Shawn, we're gonna fully commit to just an hour because Shawn's got to get out of here. But if you got questions that you want to ask Shawn, you want to ask me, just put it in the YouTube box. We're live right now on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're also on my YouTube channel, self-entitled Gavin Richard and G22786, and all those other books on Amazon.com that Shawn has. But Shawn, we'll just get right into it. Of course, the big news today, earlier this week, Joe Biden announced that his running mate will be Kamala Harris. Of course, a lot of people are excited. Some people are excited about it, others are not as excited because uh, they have mixed feelings about not only just Kamala Harris, but also Joe Biden. And of course, it's interesting how the media is going to treat this one because Kamala Harris, you know, remember she dropped out of the race earlier last year, late last year, because she was losing support. She was attacked, and also Joe Biden. A lot of people are not feeling him. The youth are not feeling him. In fact, Yahoo News put out an article stating this as well, that the young folks were not feeling Joe Biden. Yet, all on my Facebook page, especially those of my colleagues and friends in the legal field, uh, a large number of them are supporting this ticket because the additive is to get rid of the other guy, which is Donald Trump. What do you think about Kamala Harris and the pick of a thought of her of being vice president to Joe Biden's presidency?
I'm not happy about Joe Biden picking Kamala Harris because this decision to pick Kamala Harris shows that Joe Biden really did not listen to the people out here because Kamala Harris is somebody that the black community does not support, has emphatically said they do not want to support. And this woman went out of her way with her policies to attack black men, went to imprison black men and make black men about a part of the prison industrial complex. And Joe Biden knew this, but still decided to pick this woman, not understanding that by picking this woman, he practically put a nail in the coffin, as I see it, for his own campaign, because he was supposed to be allegedly the great savior for the Democratic Party, but he showed that he's not interested in hearing the people who have been talking ever since 2016 about the direction of the party. I mean, this choice is one of the worst ones I've seen since Walter Mondale picked Geraldine Ferraro. Passively, that decision was about so-called diversity, but aggressively, what it did was drive away the female voters. And this decision of Kamala Harris is one that's going to alienate the white female voting bloc, who went 53% in some polls and 60% with Donald Trump. And it's going to lead to a larger population of white females going with Donald Trump because many white women they got alienated about the whole idea of this Kamala Harris getting elevated. And many black men who only voted 8% in the last election are now going to be voting in large numbers for Donald Trump based on Kamala Harris's record of declaring war on black men. So this vice presidential pick was not a very good one. And if you think about the whole, if Biden falls in as related to office and has to be replaced, Kamala Harris is not someone I would trust with the power of a president. I mean, as I see it, she just is somebody who doesn't understand the office of the executive branch, and she'd be no different than Donald Trump if she were given that kind of power. In fact, I think she would go power mad if she had that kind of power. So I see this decision as a really bad one for Joe Biden. It's not going to get him any votes from black men or white women. I mean, it may persuade a few gullible black women to believe in some sort of diversity, but most black Americans who are ADOS or foundational blacks know Kamala Harris is not a black woman. She was born of a Jamaican and an Indian, and she has claimed she does not want to support black people, nor does she want anything to do with the black community. So she's someone who is not bringing anything to the table to the black voter as related to tangibles. And this is why I say that the Biden campaign is not one that anybody black should even consider voting for.
Right. Well, Sean, it's interesting you saying that because I even put, and you saw this because you and I are Facebook buddies, where I put a Facebook meme up and a post up and I'll show you. I said it was going to be another 4 years, and I got hammered by some. A lot of people didn't like what I had to say, and they thought I was being negative by me pointing that out. I was talking with somebody earlier today talking about you being a hater, you being negative, but people just I feel people just don't want to admit the truth that we have horrible candidates, that we have people. It's not about the fact that whether we think Joe Biden should be perfect or not. I think it has to do with the fact that young people are looking for something different, and we keep getting the status quo, and we're getting people like a Joe Biden who tied to these segregationists like Strom Thurmond, Roy Farbus out of Arkansas, your John Stennis in Mississippi, and Joe East. I might be getting his first name wrong, but Eastland, who was the senator, Democratic senator. He had their audio tapes of him talking to Lyndon Johnson, and Lyndon Johnson even said himself in recordings that if there was a flood in Mississippi, Eastland would blame the niggers by saying they did this for the Communist Party. He actually denied the civil rights activists that were killed in Mississippi, Sherman, Goodman, and Cheney, practical joke. But I go through all of that, and have you encountered something like that where people could think you're just being negative and hateful?
No, not at all. Most of my viewers actually see it the same way I see it. They see it as a very terrible decision as
Right.
related to Biden picking Kamala Harris. They're not attacking me. They're actually saying that this is one of the worst decisions they've ever seen for picking a vice president, and not one that really shows us that the Democratic Party is listening to we the people. It just shows how disconnected they still are and how they still have not learned anything from the 2016 election. They still, it looks like, are taking the votes for granted. And many of the young people don't see anything as related to this ticket offering them anything in terms of jobs or anything in terms of hope, because this ticket is still so rooted in the past and still so rooted in blue check politics that it's not thinking about the young people and galvanizing them to go out here and vote. There's nothing in
Right.
it for the youngsters. They're looking at it and saying, "Look, there's nothing here. These candidates just all they talk about is I hate Trump and I don't like Trump." And again, that's not a platform. You're bringing nothing to the table, and that's always been the left's problem. Is they only have one argument, and that argument is we don't like Donald Trump, and that's not enough to get people excited about your platform, because you're not bringing anything tangible to the table. You're not bringing an agenda to the table, and you're not listening to people who have agendas. You're only still going on the same feminists, Hispanics, LGBT, and that's just not enough to get voters excited, especially young black voters who see themselves being marginalized because you're going to go pick this person who is quote unquote black. But then after all these riots and all this stuff that went on with George Floyd, it shows that black life still doesn't matter to Joe Biden, and black votes don't matter to him. And he needs to be taught a lesson that if he doesn't want black to offer black tangibles, then black people shouldn't even vote for this ticket, because this ticket offers nobody anything. And again, it shows nobody listened in the last 4 years.
So, how do you feel about the idea of another 4 years of Donald Trump? A lot of people say, well, they're our only hope. They all we got.
Well, that argument just doesn't wash for me because to say this is the only hope, but if you want to be a hope for somebody, you have to bring something to the table. You have to have something you're going to offer outside of just the other guy is bad. I mean, this is an
Right.
argument many beta males use when they go out here and they see a girl dating a guy that they don't like. They just go, the other guy is bad, but they don't really bring up anything that they have to offer except I'm a nice guy, and that's not enough. I mean, you have to bring something to the table. And the problem with many on the left is they still are running on the same platform of hope and change and not bringing anything of substance to the table that shows that they're listening to the people, that they're going to try to take care of the needs of the people, and that they care about the people. I mean, you can say Donald Trump is a bad guy all you want, but all that does is make him stronger. You have to bring something concrete to the table
Right.
to show you have a different product and this product is going to benefit the American people. I mean, what the critical question you have to ask the left is what does Joe Biden and Kamala Harris bring to the table that is going to benefit the American people? What type of direct vision do they have for the country for the next 4 years? What type of plan do they have to take the country in a better direction than Donald Trump? I mean, just to tell me Trump is bad, that's nothing. I mean, I could say I'm not Donald Trump by saying I'm Shawn James. Okay, that's the argument you have. I'm Shawn James. I'm not Donald Trump. Should I run for president? Should you vote for me? I mean, do I have the qualifications to be the president? Those are the critical questions anybody should ask out here. And Joe Biden really has not answered that question outside of that. Because I could run for president and say, I'm not Donald Trump. I'm Shawn James. You should vote for me because I'm not Donald Trump. And that's the silly argument that the Democrats are running. And that's why they just have run one of the weakest campaigns. And I thought the Hillary campaign was weak. This one is even weaker than that. And it just shows how they take the American people for granted and how they just don't appreciate the voting blocks and the voting masses. They don't respect them by giving them a tangible platform. I mean, that's just, you had 4 years to give the American people a tangible platform, and you gave us absolutely nothing. And that just shows how lazy these candidates are, that they didn't come to the table with their best against one of the weakest candidates out there. And you could have easily beat this guy, but you just had to do your homework.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm sharing with you guys an article from the New York Post where they just inside Kamala Harris's history as Attorney General, as a prosecutor, which I believe would be is going to be heavily scrutinized in the election because right now, as Jason Black said, we're in the honeymoon phase where everybody, I guess, right now there's a pop and excitement because Biden has found his pick for the presidency, his running mate. But you have people who, when she had time as a prosecutor, people have brought up the case of Matrice Richardson, who was a black lesbian woman who was found. Her remains were found in a park, if I'm not mistaken, and apparently that was investigated. Many people suspected the sheriff's department, the Los Angeles Police Department, did not do a thorough job, and Kamala Harris's office declined to press charges on it. And I'm hearing that from some people in California who are complaining about that. Um, the issue with her as a prosecutor, where she talks about sentencing. It says even here during her tenure as Attorney General, at least 1,560 people were thrown behind bars for marijuana related offenses from 2011 to 2016. But when she was on the Breakfast Club, she joked about smoking marijuana and, listening to Snoop Dogg, even though Snoop Dogg probably, by the time she was in college, Snoop Dogg was still a teenager, wasn't even heard of at that time. But I think people suffer from historical amnesia as well. We repeat ourselves, and I actually looked into the case you were talking about with Walter Mandel and versus Ronald Reagan and how he won in a landslide. And honestly, I would not be surprised if Donald Trump did win this election. I don't think like uh, I don't see a Biden Harris ticket, and this is with carrying a southern state.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it either. I just the Biden picked a really bad candidate, and he just doesn't have a
Right,
platform.
and that's just realism.
And they're just not strong enough to take
I'm
on
sorry,
a
Sean.
Donald Trump, and that really. I'm sorry, that's just saying that they're just not strong enough to take on Trump. You can continue what you're saying.
Yeah, well, what I was just saying was that I don't think that's hate being negative. I'm just speaking facts.
No, that's just logic right there. I mean, anybody logical can look at the historical context and say, hey, this has a lot of parallels to Walter Mondale and Geraldine Ferraro, which was supposed to take on Ronald Reagan. And Mondale, back in '84, wasn't prepared. And he came out here with a platform talking about raising taxes and going back to the Carter era and the approaches of Jimmy Carter. And he practically got destroyed in 1984. And Biden isn't really bringing anything outside of Obama platform, and the Obama platform, like the Carter platform, is a failure. So this is not something that looks like something strong. It's not being negative. It's just looking at things from a logical and critical perspective. Unfortunately, many in the black community, they get emotional, especially a lot of black women. They think that because they picked Kamala Harris, that it means that he is supporting black women, but in actuality, he is actually using this woman in order to manipulate to try to get the black female vote.
And she actually ran when she was senator American, uh, as an Indian American. When I
Yes.
read the articles, when she won as senator, they were talking about her being. Let me see if I can find it and pull it up. But they were talking about her being the first Indian American senator in the United States. That they were touting that. I remember when Bobby Jindal, who was actually the worst governor the state of Louisiana probably ever had in a long time, probably before I was born. He was actually being touted, uh, for the vice presidency, for the presidency. Actually, they wanted him as a candidate. I was like, oh hell no. And but let me see if I can find that. Uh, Someone put it up. I think it was shout out to all the people in the channel. Garrett Gregory's watching. Alex, see you. Tony Dooley. We've got a lot of people watching, man. You guys got questions? Ask right now. Now is the time. But yeah, certainly. But you feel, what do you say though to the generation, especially of elders who say you don't vote, you voting for Trump, or your vote matters, and so forth? When black people are a minority in this country, we don't control. We're only 40 million, at least 40, between 40 or 45 million people in this nation, and there's 350 people in the United States that live here total. So while we may be a swing vote, we're not the majority.
Yeah. Well, I have to say to those elders who want to talk about that argument of if we don't vote, it's a vote for Trump, you have to bring something tangible to the table as related to voting. We cannot allow people to keep taking the black vote for granted by just saying we have to go out here and vote for anyone. You have to give me something to vote for. I mean, every other community out here, when they go out here to vote, they go out here to vote in exchange for something such as earmarks for government programs, federal jobs, or a housing or housing contracts. They vote to get tangibles back in exchange for their votes. And we can't just sit there and just vote for anyone without them coming to us and delivering on goods. Black people have to demand more of their politicians than just, oh, he's somebody who supports black people. Well, if you support black people, then you need to bring something tangible to the table in exchange for that vote. But if you're not bringing anything to the table for a vote, then I have no incentive to go to my polling place and put in a vote for you just because you say the other guy is worse than you. What do you have to offer that the other guy doesn't have? And that's the critical question most black people who are older aren't asking, that younger people like myself are asking of these candidates, because we're tired of giving these candidates votes and then they come back to Washington, do the same amount of nothing, come back 4 years later, pander for more votes, and do the same amount of nothing. I mean, if these people are hired to represent us, they need to represent by providing tangibles and services to their communities, not just show up because they are the black candidate or they are the not racist candidate. That's just not good enough for black people to accept, because our standard should be, are these people making sure that we have better schools, better housing, lower crime, employment? Are they bringing resources back from our tax dollars back to our communities? Are they bringing resources back that enrich the quality of life of people in those communities? Are they supporting economic empowerment of black people? Because we can't sit there and just keep giving votes to people just because they are black or they're not the racist candidate. Those arguments, they don't wash anymore, because when we look at the 8 years of Barack Obama, this man did nothing. When we look at Kamala Harris's record, she did nothing. And we're not just going to vote for the black candidate unless the black candidate can bring intangibles. And we're not going to vote for guys like Joe Biden unless they want to bring on a tangibles in a black agenda, and they're going to support a black agenda, because we have to set the agenda first. And if they're not with our agenda, then we don't need to vote for them, because, oh, the other guy is bad, but what you do is worse, because you come in here, you get this job, you do nothing for 4 straight years, then you come back to me and say, oh, hire me again. And would you hire an employee like that? I mean, that's a critical question most of
Right.
these older
I was
people.
saying the same thing. I was saying the same thing the other day. Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
hire an employee who does nothing for you for 4 years and then say, oh, it's time for his performance appraisal, I'm going to bring him back? No, you're not going to bring him back, because he's not doing the work that you need. And he's not doing the work because you're not demanding he do the work. And we as black Americans have to sit there and say, look, these candidates have to do some work for us. They have to put something on the table. And if they can't put something on the table, then we need to put them out, or not even, or better yet, we're not going to put you in the first place.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I said, well, wait a minute. If you, because I was trying to record last night, and I'm saying to myself, if you were hiring someone and you were doing a hiring process, one guy comes in and he says, you ask him a question, says, we've interviewed several candidates. Tell us something different, anything about you that would make us consider hiring you versus the other opponents. And they said, well, I'm sure I'm better than the other guy. Would you hire somebody if they just answered that?
No, you
No,
wouldn't, because he's not giving you specifics.
he's not giving you specifics, correct? And that's the thing. We want specifics, but we're not getting that. But what we are getting is shamed. We're being shamed into voting and pointed their fingers at. And really, what I noticed, Shawn, and maybe you agree with this, when someone tells you vote or die, or you better go vote because our ancestors fought for it, don't you think they're doing that because they want you to vote how they want you to vote, or to vote just as a
Well, I think that they're doing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm finished. I'm
Well,
asking.
they're doing that because they're trying to shame you into voting for their candidate. But it's up to that candidate to sell themselves. I mean, I look at voting now like a job interview. If you want this job, you need to show me why you're qualified for this job. You need to present specifics on what makes you qualified for this job. And if you can't sell yourself, then how good of a candidate you are. When I look at Joe Biden, he's a very weak candidate. I mean, if this guy can't sell himself,
I
then
worry about his age too.
yeah, well, I'm not, well, I know his age is a factor, but if he can't have the confidence to sell himself, then how can he present a counteroffer to the American people? I mean, part of looking for work, I was always told, is you have to sell yourself. And this candidate is not selling himself at all. He's just hiding in the background, taking these hit and run jabs at Donald Trump. And that's a very weak position for a candidate to be in. A candidate needs to come across as strong, a candidate needs to come across as confident, and a candidate needs to come across as reassuring, especially during a pandemic, that he has a plan to lead the nation out of that pandemic. He can't come across as soft and weak the way Joe Biden has come across. And he has to sit there and assert himself and then sell himself. And then after he sells himself, sell his vision. And I'm not seeing that from a Joe Biden. And you can come at me with vote or die or our ancestors, but ultimately it's about the candidate selling himself or herself and showing what they have to offer. I mean, if I would came into a job interview with my head down, wearing a pair of Timberland boots, spice tans, sagging jeans, and I'm coming in for a job interview, nobody's going to take me seriously. And many of these candidates, they don't make you take them seriously because when you ask them critical questions, they can't answer the questions. And they come in with shaming language, which is a very feminine thing. Oh, I'm going to shame you because if you consider the other guy, you're bad. But this is all about you, and you have the spotlight on you. And this is your opportunity to make your impression on the people. And a lot of these candidates are not doing a good job of that. And the American people are giving them a pass. I mean, Joe Biden's presentation, as I've seen it so far, has been unacceptable. I mean, if you're going to be the leader of the nation, you need to show leadership skills. You need to present yourself, with confidence, and you need to present a vision of how you're going to tackle things like this pandemic and how you're going to help get the country back on track, because we have half of America out of work, and you need to be talking about what you want to do to get this country back working, functional in a rapid amount of time.
Most definitely. We got by any means necessary in the building. What's up, man? Joe Biden's one interview away from talking about the first time he and his father lynched a black man. That, wow. Well, I know this much. He has said, he has said a lot of I guess you can call it inflammatory things. Of course, the last thing he said was about comparing the black community to the Hispanic community, and basically said, unlike the black community, the Hispanic community is diverse. Although you look in the black community, we're hella diverse in terms of how we look like, of what we look like, how we think, what we say. Of course, I do think the one thing you could say that we may be monolithic in is the fact that we vote Democratic often. Too often, too much. And this is not coming from a Republican. I'm not. I'm actually registered as a Democrat, but I'm considering, switching to independent. I think independently as well because I don't like a lot of things that, what's up, by any means necessary. I think a lot of people, especially young black people like myself, are frustrated with the way things are going in the Democratic Party and how they have treated black men in particular. We've just been, I think they really disrespected us with stuff like this. So we're just tired of seeing that.
Yeah, we are tired of seeing it, and they just take Americans for granted. And that's one of the things I have a problem with the Democratic Party is just that they think, oh, we're just going to just take people for granted, and people have to vote for us. And they don't understand that people are just tired of them. People are tired of them taking just not being nonchalant, not caring. I mean, I look at the way the House and the Senate just left all of these unemployed people in crisis with no sort of relief, no sort of unemployment extension. I mean, this just shows, again, like I saw in 2009 with Obama, when he let the House and the Senate go on vacation. They put themselves first and did not put the people first. You have people who are barely trying to make ends meet, don't even know how they're going to be able to pay their bills or feed themselves. And they are just took people for granted. And on the left, they just try to use us as pawns. And it's time, and people are just saying enough is enough with them. Enough is enough of their just thinking that they're better than everybody else, smarter than everybody else, and treating people like trash. And that's why people are just tired of these politicians, because they just talk a good game, but they haven't delivered. And they talk down to you. They have this whole paternalistic view of, we know what's better for you, but then they don't care about we the people. And that's one of the things I get from a lot of Democrats is this: I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you, and I don't have to think or care about you. I can just do whatever I want. They again take people for granted, and they just again have not learned a single thing from 2016 when they got chastised with Hillary Clinton's loss. They just are going back doing the exact same thing and not understanding doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. It's called insanity.
Insanity. Right, the definition of insanity. Uh, well, no doubt about that. Uh, Wanted to get into another topic right fast, Sean. This news came out on yesterday, and I want to share it with you. 20th Century Fox is no more. Disney, of course, acquired 20th Century Fox in 2019, and subsequently, Disney has announced that they just added 20th Century Fox brand, one of the most storied names in entertainment. They announced Monday it would be rebranding, one of its TV studios, 20th Century Fox Television, as 20th Television. The name cuts both the Century and Fox from the studio's name, and it allows Disney to drop the Fox name from its 20th Century Fox film brand. Uh, it follows the fact that, that they dropped the Fox name from its film brand in January. The company, which closed a $71 billion deal to acquire many of Fox's assets last year, remained the longtime studio as just 20th Century Studios. And of course, 20th Century Fox, man, you think of them, these are the guys that they produce Star Wars and the Alien franchise as well as Predator franchise. And Sean, I just wanted to get your thoughts because I know you're a guy who examines entertainment and so forth. What did you think of something like this?
Well, it's just par for the course. I mean, Disney figures they bought all of those assets. And when you buy assets, you can practically do whatever you want with them. So, what they're doing is they're trying to erase Fox from history so that the Fox name won't go on and the Disney name will go on. And that's just what happens when you have companies acquiring other companies. I mean, this is a sad part of what happened with the Telecommunications Bill of '96, and this is what I think Bill Clinton and the Republicans did not see happening as a result. What we would see is the stripping of history, the stripping of culture, because when one media mogul goes out here and buys another media mogul's assets, they can practically do whatever they want with them, and they can practically change those assets or change what those assets look like because they own and control them. And this is why we had federal regulations to go out here and prevent people from doing this, because when one person controls all of the media, what they'll do is wind up erasing these names that are historic, like 20th Century Fox, because they want their name to go on. And they'll also start erasing parts of history because they don't fit their narrative. And this is a very scary part of the removal of that. I mean, not removal, but this Telecommunications Bill of '96 is that with this media consolidation going on, we're seeing a lot of companies winding up where people's intellectual property is just being buried. A lot of it is being erased or revised to fit narratives. And again, this is something that both your Bill Clinton and your Republicans in the Senate weren't thinking about back in '96. And they're not even thinking about other things like people like some Lorenzo who just died. I mean, what happens with this CBS Viacom assets at this point? I mean, these big companies, they practically control so much media, and a lot of these companies, they are in flux. I mean, Disney has bought Fox, but Disney itself is in trouble right now. I mean, Disney is in really bad shape. They have a lot of debt from the loans they took to buy Fox, and the theme parks aren't doing well. So this removal of 20th Century Fox may only be a short-term erasure of history because Disney itself may be practically on the brink of going out.
You think Disney's on the brink of going out?
Yeah, because they bought Fox with a bunch of loans. They're not bringing revenue in because they haven't been able to open movies due to the pandemic. and they haven't been able to open theme parks due to the pandemic. And Disney Plus is not performing as well as they thought it would because it doesn't have enough forward facing content, doesn't have any new content. So Disney is in really bad shape and they are on the brink, just like not Warner Brothers. I keep forgetting who controls Warner. AT&T just fired a bunch of DC Comics employees because a lot of these companies, they aren't doing well because the theaters aren't opening due to the pandemic. They can't really get this merchandise and movies out there, and they are rickety and practically on the brink of collapse. I mean, Disney is in really, really bad shape right now. They have a lot of debt again, and they just have not been pulling that revenue in, and they're relying on a lot of schemes like they want people to pay $26 for Mulan on Disney Plus because they can't get any movies to the theaters to generate the big revenue like they used to.
Well, I think yeah, well, this COVID-19 pandemic certainly has taken a lot out of the film industry. I do know they announced AMC was going to, a news article I saw today, they're allowing people into the movie theater for 15 cents, 15-cent tickets. And, of course, you remember they actually had the company trying to, um, these film companies that were talking, these different film movie theater companies actually going to go under. They requested Congress help them out the extra monies. And of course, I don't think anything happened with that because we may be seeing those businesses close as well. You make me want to get a bottle of water right now, man.
Yeah, I need to cool off for a second.
Yeah.
But a lot of these theaters are they were suffering before this because there was a major decline in box office at the theater because people were not going to the movies because the movies were so bad. And then COVID came along because I remember seeing the box office for a lot of movies had dropped even before this. Even in Christmas of 2019, the movies just weren't doing well because the studios just aren't taking risks. They're not bringing out fresh, original concepts, fresh material tells the viewer or gives them incentive to watch because you're making movies about 30, 40-year-old concepts. And these movie executives, they are practically, as I see it, stuck in a time warp and they're not looking at the scale of time. I mean, I recently read they wanted to do another Knight Rider movie. And I'm like, Knight Rider was a 1980s concept and it worked because kids saw the world differently. And if you bring it out today, it just doesn't work. I mean, you did a Knight Rider in about 2015, I think, or 2005, and you keep
2005.
you keep repackaging the same ideas over and over again, and that's because these executives are so scared of risk. They don't see all these concepts. Like I have a whole box of books with concepts in them. You don't want to take a risk on anything new because you don't want to hire anybody new. But the only way you're going to reach millennials or Gen Z is with new, fresh content. But these guys don't want to take a risk on it. They'd rather play it safe. But they don't understand that playing it safe with a 30, 40-year-old concept that people have outgrown and the world has changed on is not going to get you blockbuster box office numbers. And many of your franchises are very old, very long in the tooth, and it's just time to bring in new stuff. I mean, you may lose some money in the short, but in the long, you will find those franchises that will help you make money. But Hollywood is just too scared to take a risk these days. And I fear that we're going to have to see a 1960s, 1970s style collapse to get these executives back to taking the risks again.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying. Um, I think our by any means necessary actually said. I got to go back to the comment. It was funny. Bad. This is very bad for entertainment, especially if Disney's involved. That mouse is not a mouse, but a very diseased rat with rabies, which will infect everyone and everything. I think about that because keep in mind also Disney owns the rights to Star Wars. They own the rights to uh, Marvel Comics. They also own the rights to The Simpsons that was acquired in that deal. So it's like you got a whole monopoly on the entertainment industry. One
No, they have
company,
what they have a monopoly on is old material, and they don't
no,
understand it's
old rich
depreciating.
material though, because those filthy rich stuff that I mean, Marvel Comics, like for instance, like when I say think about this though, Marvel Comics, the first movie that came out from Marvel Comics was Blade, right? And
Yeah,
then after Blade, X-Men and so forth. So I noticed though when you looked at the Avengers, it was when the Avenger movies came out, it was under Iron Man originally was under Paramount, as was the Hulk. I think is still under Universal, but then that switched to when they got the Avengers in, it just became Marvel Comics its own studio. And then on top of that, I look at the X Men though. The X Men was always under 20th Century Fox. Even the cartoon series back in the 90s was on Fox Kids and
yeah,
so forth. So now Disney owns that too. So it's just like what we talked about with the Viacom CBS, the Summer Rapstone guy who died, who actually created that concept of the multiplex theater. He, that company owns like 12 channels, not just CBS, but the all the other channels like Nickelodeon, CMT, Paramount Network, MTV, VH1, BET. I'm just thinking this. All of those people own that, and it's like we don't even have a choice in what we can watch no more.
yeah. But my point is that all this stuff is old, and the whole thing is that they're not forward thinking about the next generation. So you can have this old 30, 40-year-old content, but this stuff is depreciating in value. I mean, back in the days when I was a kid, I Love Lucy was considered a valuable show, but by the time we hit 2000, nobody was airing I Love Lucy because the show was so old and it depreciated in value, and that's what's happening to a lot of what we call beloved 80s and 80s staples. Is that the kids who are my age, who grew up in the 80s, I'm going to be 47 in September, we're getting older, and the whole thing is nobody's forward thinking about the millennials, the Gen Zs, the younger kids out here, and giving them their own characters and pushing their own characters. They're still trying to push old material, not understanding The Simpsons is a 30-year-old show,
That's not funny anymore.
and Family Guy is getting near 30, and a lot of these assets, Alien, Predator, they're on 40th anniversaries. This stuff is losing value as we speak because you can only make so many movies about an old character till the kids start going, "Hey, Grandpa, that's your character," and they're not going to be interested. The same way when I was a kid and they came out with Lone Ranger movies and Tarzan movies, I just didn't care about those movies, and today's kids aren't interested. So we have a lot of these older people trying to sell this old material thinking that it's so valuable, but they're only valuable to a small group of niche collectors and niche fans, and that fan base is getting older as we speak. The younger kids really aren't taking to these characters because the stories don't really resonate with them because they come from another era. So a lot of the studios they're banking on old material, but any smart businessman is going to say, "Look, I can't bank on old material. That's good for my backlist and back sales, but I need to start coming out with some front list stuff and some front list characters and some brand new franchises because if I don't come out with fresh new material, I'm going to be forgotten just like a lot of these old movies because that's what people see. Many of these franchises like Star Wars and many of these other franchises, they see them as old movies. They don't see them as new and fresh. They see them as grandpa's movie. And that's something people aren't really thinking about that I think about. I love Marvel comics. I love Marvel superheroes. I love Star Wars. But I understand that these characters aren't really being kept fresh for the next generation. And you can't really keep them fresh because these are 50, 60-year-old characters. And you have to bring in new characters and new franchises because the world is very different. I mean, the way kids live today is very different. That's something I try to show in ISIS and Easteen books about social media and things about, life going on with kids today, that their world is, I see their world and I understand that what their world kind of sort of is like. And I understand that I can't show my world from the 80s to the world of kids today. I mean, if I give a kid an 80s show, he's going to go, "Where's the cell phones? Where's the internet?" And he's going to look at that and go, "That's not me." And a guy is going to look at it and go, "It's just not anything I know about."
Yeah, I think that say this in closing. Right now, this is the time I think Hollywood could really re-examine itself in terms of the content that they put out. Yeah, those characters, I get what you're saying about them. This is those characters are old. They're not fresh, they're not new. But the thing is, they're always going to generate money, and that's what Hollywood looks at. So, like we take Batman for instance. Batman has been around before my father. When my dad was growing up, he watched the old Adam West series that came out. And I used to watch reruns of it as well, even though it was campy. I still enjoyed stuff like that. But then when I was growing up, my Batman was Michael Keaton. And honestly, Kevin Conroy, who voiced Batman, the Batman animated series. That's the stuff we grew up on. And of course, they're always going to do a new Batman movie because they always know people are going to buy that money. We look at the Joker movie, for instance. I didn't think anybody could ever top Heath Ledger. Let alone I didn't think Heath Ledger was going Are we there?
Yeah, I'm
Hello?
here having technical issues. I'm here.
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, he did a phenomenal job as the Joker, man. But they're thinking about money at the end of the day. But I think too, on the other hand, a lot of the stuff that they're doing, like, and you've talked about this when they do put political and social aspects in some of the television characters, in particular when they push, a feminist LGBTQ agenda, it turns people off, and that's why these shows, these television shows that they have, a lot of people are not watching them as much as they do. I think one of the movies that they came out, Captain Marvel, which was successful, it was also a lot of people that were criticizing it. Judge Joe Brown tells me the movie flopped, but I mean, it made over $1 billion, or close to it supposedly.
Well, that was the international, but the whole thing is just critically panned, and people hate
Yeah,
that character.
because is it because of the feminist? Is it because she's a woman, or you think
They
it's
hate it because of the feminist narratives and the identity politics, and it just wasn't a very good movie because she wasn't really an internally strong character. She was so busy trying to push a political agenda that she wasn't a compelling character, and that's why everybody just doesn't like her. Because if you look at Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman was well received by, excuse me, comic fans, and she had big support because it was true to the spirit of the comics. I mean, and for three-quarters of the movie, it was a very solid movie. But with
a
Captain
solid
Marvel,
storyline?
yeah, you were all involved in the story and the characters, but with Captain Marvel, you just got preached to, and nobody goes to a movie to be preached to. They go to a movie to escape their problems, and all Captain Marvel did was bring us a problem and talk about female empowerment.
And Gail Gadot is a fine woman. She's a fine woman. I think a lot of us like looking at her. Even the woman who was actually on Wonder Woman, she played Aurora in not Aurora. She was in Man of Steel. What was General Zod's right? You know who it is, right hand woman.
But Feora, I think.
Feora. I'm sorry. Yeah, Feora. Aurora was Star Trek. Yeah, Feora. Yeah, she actually I think auditioned for Wonder Woman, and she's pretty cute. She could have gotten it too, but yeah, and I'm anxious to see what the Gail Gadot this Wonder Woman 1984 is going to bring. They're talking about releasing the movie in the fall, but I don't see honestly seeing movie theaters opening that fast.
No.
They may as well just put it on demand. Same thing with the
Well,
James Bond
well, they
films.
don't want to take that risk because they have put over $100 million in this movie. And
Well, I understand that, but I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
they put $100 million in this movie, or $300 million, so they don't really want to risk that type of loss because usually streaming is considered like the 10th revenue stream for a lot of these studios. So they want to try to see if they can get this box office out, and hopefully it looks like COVID seems to be dropping as we speak. The numbers seem to be dropping, so maybe we might get these theaters open sooner rather than later. But it depends.
But then they're talking about a spike in the fall, and
Well,
movies has been pushed to the fall. I just, I understand the money aspect of it because, Netflix. I know when they did The Irishman, they spent over 100 million just in creating that movie alone, and that's not even including marketing and advertisement. But they're a streaming service, so uh, they thought they would get in the box office, and I honestly thought they should have won some Oscars for that, but it didn't happen.
yeah, but that I think about this, like streaming is like a last ditch effort, but I think they're going to try. I think with if Biden wins, we're going to see a whole different story. We may see theaters opening up. We might see a whole different game because the whole thing is, I think a lot of this stuff is being held back because Trump is still president. But I think if Biden were to be elected, we would see a whole different game.
What do you mean?
I mean, we might see all this virus talk go away or start to
Yeah.
decline.
Okay.
I think that may possibly happen with a Biden election. That's what they're gambling on because a lot of the people on the left who control the media and the businesses, they really want to get back started to business because they've lost so much money. So what they want to do is get Biden in office in order to get back to business as usual.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Last thing I want to talk about, because I know you got to get out of here in an hour, and I appreciate you. We got by any means says Wonder Woman was good. That ending was 50-50. The Aries sucked, but learning from Steve Trevor, amazing.
Yeah. I say three-quarters of the movie was very solid. I mean,
Yeah,
the ending was the only problem with Wonder Woman, but the overall film is very solid.
the chemistry was great too.
Yeah,
Between
the acting was good, the direction was good.
yeah, remember there was a movie theater I think in Texas where they only allowed the women to go see the movie.
They tried to push that woke agenda and it didn't work.
Yeah, a lot it backfired on him. But the last thing I want to talk about, Shawn, your thoughts on this, and I I am gonna eventually make a video on it. I just haven't been feeling too great. It's not COVID, everybody. It's not that. My throat, if you can tell, I'm not talking as much. It's just my throat has been killing me. Um,
Um,
was WAP too much? And of course, I'm talking about the Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion video. Shawn, did you see it?
no, I didn't see it because if I wanted to watch porn, I would just go watch porn. I mean, this is just basically a pornographic video being mainstreamed as a social norm, and people needed to push back against this because what these women are doing is just promoting sexual promiscuity and promoting stripper behavior and as I call it, whorehouse culture as a social norm. And these women talk about a WAP, but they have an empty bank account and a net worth of about $5. So this promoting of this WAP, as I see it, is just something that's disgusting. This video is disgusting.
Well, I don't think
And
Cardi B's net worth is down. She's a millionaire, but I
I
think
don't no, but I'm talking about in terms of not of her character, and the women she's promoting have a net worth of $5.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
The average black female who acts like this has a net worth of $5. So they don't have any value, and they have low self esteem because they have low self esteem. That's why they're showing these body parts because they don't have anything of substance to show themselves. And this type of video, I'm not gonna even want to even look at because if I want to look at porn, there's Pornhub and a bunch of other pornographic websites where you can watch this type of content for free.
Now, do you see where this article? I just looked this up. This is an article in Teen Vogue. WAP reaction shows how threatened men are by female sexuality. This is Teen Vogue talking about this.
And that's not an appropriate article for Teen Vogue as I see it. I mean, no teenage girl should be reading this type of stuff. I mean, men aren't intimidated by female sexuality. Men like female sexuality, but this is not female sexuality. This is whorehouse culture, and whorehouse culture being promoted as a social norm. This is what strippers and porn stars behavior they participate in. And this is not something men want to see in women who they
Right.
would want to consider for a girlfriend or a wife. This is, I mean, this type of culture is the kind of culture that prostitutes participate in. And this is something that is absolutely disgusting to look at when a woman brings herself down and says that her only value are her private parts. That's absolutely disgusting, and it just shows how little this woman thinks of herself. But then these same women later on, after they have promoted this whorehouse culture, later on when they get older, talk about how they want to get a good man. Well, if you're not promoting the values of a wife to people or somebody that a man can bring home to his family as respectable, then he has no interest in wanting to deal with you. I mean, what man wants to be reflected by a Cardi B or a Megan Thee Stallion? That's the critical question I have to ask these women who talk about this is about female sexuality. What man wants to be reflected with this type of woman? And most men don't want that woman to be a reflection of themselves when they go out here being represented as their image, nor do they want to take this woman out and show to be their woman or to take them to a family function. Do you want to really take this type of woman anywhere? I mean, I wouldn't want to take this
Would
woman anywhere.
would you take her home to your mother? You know,
I
it's
would
just like the Rick James song, Super Freak.
I
You
would definitely not bring that woman home to my mother or my family. I mean, I wouldn't even look at this woman walking down the street. I mean, I remember walking down Times Square and there were these topless performers there, and I just walked right by them. I didn't pay them any attention because I just found them to be revolting. I mean, this woman, all she's showing is her body because she has nothing of value or substance. And when a man is looking for in a woman is somebody with good values and substance, because that's what they're going to teach their children. I
right.
mean, would I want this woman who's out here and talking about WAP to be the mother of my children? Definitely not. And I wouldn't want her to be around my children to be a negative influence because what these women like to talk about is, oh, this is so empowering. But I don't see anything empowering about this at all because I hear this from women in the porn industry all the time. I want to do porn because it's so empowering. And then they get turned out in a year. And then it's like,
One night stand.
I mean, how empowering is it when you get turned out in a year and you're back out here again? And just it's like you don't see this is not empowering. This is not liberating. This is embarrassing. And
Right.
you're an embarrassment to yourself. You're an embarrassment to your family. You're an embarrassment to the people all around you. But the sad part is we have so many simps out here who won't call out these type of women and let them know, look, you're out of order. You're presenting an image that is reflecting negatively on black women. And this is just unacceptable. And because it's unacceptable, I'm not going to have anything to do with you. And that's what black people need to do with your Cardi B's and your Megan Thee Stallions. We need to cut these people off and stop dealing with them. Because if we stop dealing with them, they'll change their image and they will realize that the only way to get support from the black community and the black dollar is you're going to have to bring yourself up to standard.
Well, Cardi B, my understanding, I don't think she's a foundational Black American. I believe she's
She's Dominican, but she
yeah,
panders for the black dollar.
well, of course, she does pander to the black dollar and to black people. Her husband or her boyfriend is a member of Migos, who's a black man, and I don't even listen to them. I think it's all mumble rap. But I want to play this video because this sister, her name is Suki Hana. She's had this to say because she was actually featured in the video. They had Kylie Jenner as well. Uh, you know, I even wrote this. I said this whole conversation needs an STD test and a penicillin shot. Uh,
I feel like being like sexual shit. Like I don't see nothing wrong with that because, baby, I got 3 kids, and I mean I got these kids from sucking and fucking. At the end of the day, me being a hoe, like these people say, like honestly, I liberate a lot of hoes. You feel me? When I hear Cardi talk about popping some pussy, me and my bitches is with it. Like we that liberate us because it's like fuck you, self-respect as hoes. Cause how y'all got self-respect? Like I don't think y'all got self-respect like that. Cause first of all, you supposed to tax these niggas. That's self-respect. You feel me? Like
She talking about making money
it make
from
me
it.
feel liberated. Like I love crossing boundaries. Cause guess what? Scared money don't make no money. If you gonna be scared to get that money, you gonna be scared to be yourself and say this who I am, then you ain't gonna get that coin like that. Facts.
Let her come back to me when she's 30.
I feel like being like sexual and shit, like
Let her come back to you when she's 30.
Yeah, she'll be singing a different song because after she's been run through, after she's been practically dumped by all these guys, she'll be singing a different song. It's like, oh, it's no longer about sexuality because nobody wants you anymore. Because once these women hit the wall and they're no longer at the top of the sexual marketplace, all of that sexuality talk goes by the wayside.
That,
And when these women hit 40, then they want to try to reinvent themselves as the old mother and stuff like that. I talk about these type of women in Beware the Washed Up Black Woman, a classic blog and a classic video I did just I think last year I did the video, and I did about 8 years ago I did the blog, Beware the Washed Up Black Woman. And these type of females, they'll talk all this stuff now, but once they start getting older and they are no longer the center of attention, their whole narrative is going to change because that pool of simps that they used to tell themselves trying to be so sexual for, they will either have died, gotten married, or moved on. And she's going to be somebody nobody wants to deal with. And she's going to find out that being on that whole slut road is a lonely one because after all those guys have gotten what they wanted, they're just going to toss you to the side and you're going to be a forgotten female.
yeah, most definitely. And then listening to this, you talking, bragging about. And let me start over. And for those that don't know, you and me, Shawn, and I think I speak for every straight heterosexual black man right now that's watching. Of course, we all like pussy as men. Like, of course, I don't mind WAP. I do, but this ain't the time for it. I, you know, it was just too, even for me, like, if you were talking to Gavin Richard in 2004, 2003, BT used to have a show called Uncut. And of course, I would watch that show. It would come on like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. They would show the videos that you couldn't see during the daytime, right? So that song would perfectly fit there. And that's basically stripper music that they made. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and say I'm a prude because, yeah, artists are free to talk how they want. That people are, you're an adult, you can believe what you want to believe, you can say what you want. I guess the aspect I have to say is, though, how is this empowering, though? Why is this being promoted as empowering women in the culture?
Yeah.
Because, wait, I'm just one more thought. Because our young black, we're in a crisis right now, in a breakdown of the family, a breakdown of morals. And right now, when we're fighting for our freedom, we're fighting for against inequality. We're fighting for justice. We're not getting it with these police soldiers, these race soldiers, excuse me, that are killing young black men. And, you know, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion are talking about having hoes in this house. And then what's interesting is that if I called them a hoe, I'm pretty damn sure they wouldn't like it. But then it would be okay if they did it, or even if Snoop Dogg or anyone else who's a little higher up, they would like that.
Yeah. But that's the type of double standards they have, and that's what makes them hypocrites. They'll sit there and tell you, "Oh, I call myself a hoe, but when other people call me a hoe, I'm a misogynist. And again, just they shows their double standards, and it just shows me that these women, they really are full of it. They just do this for attention, talking about how it's empowering, but it's not empowering at all. It's degrading, it's debasing, and a lot of these women, you can't really listen to anything that they say regarding these things because they don't know what empowerment is. I think a lot of them don't even know what empowerment is because they never had a father in their life to show them self-esteem, show them self-worth, to show them value. Because I can clearly see the daddy issues in many of these types of women who have to flaunt their so-called sexuality. Because if they had a father there to meet their emotional needs, then that man would be the one that they would be have a full center on, and they would be thinking about presenting an image that reflects positively on him because they understand, again, a daughter is a reflection of her father, just like a woman is a reflection of her husband, and she wants to put the best image forward to reflect on them. And that's a message that sadly your so-called empowered woman never gets.
Most definitely, man. And Cardi B should not be a instead of promoting her as a role model for young black kids, young black girls in particular, because that's what she's marketed as. I would rather our young black girls look at, at least even the sisters who did the Hidden Figure sisters that were in there. The black women like your Sojourner Truths and your Harriet Tubmans. Those are idols that we can look up to. Ida B. Wells is another one. Things like that nature. Uh, we need to learn our history and so forth because we're bound to repeat the same mistakes, and I see that in our society. And I'm not saying that these artists, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, aren't talented, but just look at what they're promoting. And the music, honestly, most of the music today in general sucks.
Yeah.
That it's hit or miss with a lot of stuff. It's not consistent, and I think it has to do with the fact that the artists that we had back then, when you look at Marvin Gaye or Michael Jackson or uh, a Stevie Wonder, Frankie Beverly and Maze, they actually wrote songs. Same thing with uh, the Gap Band, Charlie Wilson. He writes songs. They wrote songs that made you feel good, but also made you think, and we don't have that anymore. Final thing, my friend, before you leave, because I know you got to go, and I appreciate you being here. Just briefly, what were your thoughts? You did a video on this, and you commented on my video about the Zoe Kravitz comment about Hulu and her show being canceled. And for those that don't know, there was a particular clip I think that set a lot of people off. You guys also please buy Shawn's books. You can find them on Amazon.com. One of the books he has is The Temptation of John Haynes. That is actually a series of books that he's written. Also, he has The Man Crisis uh, as well. You can also subscribe to his YouTube channel, Shawn James. That's his Cash App. And while I'm at it, let me put my Cash App at the bottom. You can donate there at Gavin Richard Esquire as well as the Google Pay. What I wanted to talk about, Shawn, too, was this that was actually from the Zoe Kravitz series High Fidelity, which was based off of a movie that her mother did. Now, this was a clip that set a lot of people off, especially from the new black media, that they didn't like because you'll see just in a minute. I did a video, a live stream about this, I think, before as well, about this clip. And I want everybody to take a look at it and you'll just see. And Shawn, you have voiced your opinion, but I want everybody just to hear what you have to say on it. And it won't be long, my friend. I appreciate you staying with me.
All
So,
right.
so here we go. This is the clip. So, and you're gonna see why this show was canceled. So here we go.
Hey, what's going on? This person who's clearly never been on the internet is trying to buy a fucking Michael Jackson album for her boyfriend. It's his birthday. Which album? Which album? Do you guys have it?
Yeah, we have it. I'm very sorry, but I don't think I can tell that to you.
Oh, okay.
Now look,
Fucking words.
let me just stop it right there. I could never tell a customer, and I know this is serious, but I could never tell a customer what they were able to buy and couldn't buy. If I did anything like that, I would be fired. When I worked at Walgreens, first thing we've learned is about that old adage: the customer is always right. You check out people, you can converse a little bit. Hello, how you doing? That's it. But I would do nothing to turn a customer away.
Alright, so we're working day and night.
Night.
Alright, yeah. Fuck it. Great. So this man is a pass.
I'll give a pass to anyone who's scaled mental illness.
Exactly. How does it benefit society to hold Quincy's genius hostage just because the dude that's
over his shit ended up being a full-blown child molester?
Allegedly.
Where'd you get that from, Rob? Huh? From fucking convenient opinions on us?
Okay, you still listen to a dude who raps in MAGA hat. So,
Fucking serious. Having shitty politics and a second grade understanding of American history is a tiny bit different than being a goddamn child molester.
allegedly.
Jesus. Kanye West has a mental health issue.
You don't think Michael Jackson had a fucking mental health issue?
Okay, cool. Great. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pop on some Charles Manson and we can all just vibe out to that. That sound cool for you?
Charles Manson made music?
Why? Would you like to buy that for your boyfriend too?
Exactly, that'd be good.
You know what, Simon?
The truth is, the only artists that we'll ever listen to are inarguably nice people, right? With unassailably.
Sean, have you noticed that the blacks are the only ones that are against this, and the whites are defending Michael?
Yeah, I noticed that. I also noticed that it's poorly written.
how does that work here?
You guys figured this out.
See you, Lewis.
Yo, you guys should just shoot for it.
Fine. Come over here. Rock, paper, scissors, and
Okay, we can see why it was canceled. And if you look here, 270 dislikes to 174 likes. Different people commented. This is not on my channel, by the way, but shout out to Yazan, who posted this. He says, regardless of whether or not Michael Jackson molested children, he didn't. If an employee at a record store or any other store scolded their customers for wanting to buy something, they would be fired immediately. Absolutely.
I mean, this was an absolutely terribly written scene. That was the first thing I noticed. And the second thing I noticed is just, it wasn't funny. I mean, this High Fidelity was supposed to be a comedy, but it wasn't a comedy. And Zoe Kravitz wanted to go on about how it was about diversity, but no, it was about how terrible this show was. And the show decided to take a dig at Michael Jackson, a man who has passed on and can't defend himself. That was really cowardly, I noticed, as related to the writing of the show. But your Zoe Kravitz wants to talk about, oh, it's about diversity, but I don't see anything diverse about this show. The show was created by a white man, adapted from his book, and
Right.
this black character was a token black character that was added to the movie and to the show. And the great irony is you have Zoe Kravitz, who says she doesn't identify as black, and talking about, and she's the token on this show. And what's really even hilarious is she's talking about, oh, this is all about diversity, but you don't identify as black. You want nothing to do with black people. You're married to a white husband, but you're talking about there not being any diversity as related to Hulu. But you're on a show where you're surrounded by white people, and the show is basically not something that was designed to appeal to black audiences, but you want to talk about diversity. It just shows how disingenuous and dishonest your Zoe Kravitz is, and how hypocritical she is, because you can't claim that, oh, I want diversity, but then I don't want anything to do with black people. So which one is it? That's the critical question I asked Zoe Kravitz. Is it about diversity, or are you just mad that your show got canceled? But when I look at that clip, it's clear to me why your show got canceled, because your show was filled with identity politics and didn't really have much humor. I mean, people, when they go to watch a show, they want to get a laugh, and High Fidelity didn't look very funny at all. I mean, this show's ratings were not doing the Luke Cage numbers of the first season. I mean, Luke Cage broke servers at Netflix. High Fidelity was barely a blip on anybody's radar.
Right. And Luke Cage actually, that was perfect timing because when it debuted in 2016, I think what attracted everybody at that time was the police shootings that were taking place. You know, it was perfect to see a black man who was a superhero who wore a hoodie, just
Yeah.
like Trayvon Martin. And I'm just looking at these comments, man. When you mess with Michael Jackson fans, boy, they will come for you.
Yeah, Michael Jackson is an icon, and for them to take a shot at Michael Jackson just shows this is just a bad show. It was just no music record store that I know of, or any record people who sell records and albums. They're not going to take shots at Michael Jackson. Somebody comes in and asks for a Michael Jackson album, they're going to sell it to them, not give us this woke melodramatic tirade that we saw right there. That's an easy transaction, and that's fast money. I mean, this was just, excuse me, really bad writing all around. I mean, I remember sitting there as a screenwriter seeing so much cringy dialogue, it wasn't funny. I mean, the writing here was just absolutely terrible. The acting was flat. I mean, this show got canceled for a reason, and the reasons had to do with the bad writing, the bad acting. I mean, just it was just an overall terrible show.
Right, it was, and no doubt about that. And even his nephews, Todd Jackson, of course, I saw him on Nicole's View. He was condemning it because, and even what's funny too is Zoe Kravitz also attacked Bill Cosby. Uh, you know, talking about how our mother always had this sense of darkness around Cosby. I'm paraphrasing, but something along those lines. But if it were not for Bill Cosby, nobody would have known who your fucking mother was.
Yeah. And nobody cared about her. Nobody cared about Lisa Bonet after she left the Cosby Show, and because all she wanted to do was get with white guys in these movies like Bank Robber and all these other crap movies that nobody cares about. And Bill
Angel,
Cosby, Bill
yeah.
Cosby was protecting her. He was trying to groom her for the girl next door role, and she would have probably had a far better career under Bill Cosby's leadership than going out on her own to become the woman who got turned out by white guys, the same way Halle Berry became the girl who got turned out by white guys. And they go out there thinking, "Oh, I'm going to go out here and be in these mainstream movies," but all they do is wind up getting turned out by white guys in sex scenes and put in gratuitous nudity. And Zoe's following right in her mother's footsteps, trying to be this white man's side piece. And what happens is you just
So
wind up getting used, turned out, pumped and dumped, and then laughed at by a bunch of white guys. And Bill Cosby, again, he tried to save Lisa Bonet from this, but Lisa Bonet, she just so caught up in being with white people that she wound up headed down that road and wound up getting turned out and exploited. And what's sad is her own daughter is heading down the exact same road, not understanding the paradigm that's going on and the vicious cycle that's going on. I mean,
her daughter was the reason, and I shouldn't put it in that terms, but that was the reason why she got fired from A Different World because she became pregnant by Lenny Kravitz.
yeah, she didn't have that. She didn't understand that Bill Cosby was preparing her for a far better career, but she wanted to go out here and live this wild life. And where did that get her? I mean, she went from being a player who could have been, she could have, Halle Berry could have been, wouldn't be Halle Berry if it wasn't for Lisa Bonet messing up. She could have been in Halle Berry's spot had she just taken the right steps.
Yeah. You know, Michael Jackson actually asked Halle Berry out and she turned him down.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, I think he dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Crazy as her husbands have been. But I mean, Halle Berry is, she's very attractive. I can't lie.
But
When she did Boomerang, oh my gosh. Boomerang. Oh,
yeah, but she was a siren, and
yeah.
sirens destroy men. So A lot of guys dodged the bullet with her, and she went down the same road because she wanted to get with the white guys, and the white guys turned her out. The black men try to keep
Really,
these black producers try to keep the black actresses on the road to being the black girl next door, but sadly, many black girls are so spellbound by that white man, they think that he's got something good there, but he's not really doing anything. They think that he's going to enrich them with these experiences, develop their acting range, but in actuality, they wind up becoming laughing stocks that these white guys make fun of because after they've had them in the nude scenes and the sex scenes, they practically don't call them after that. And I wrote about that in my screenplay, All About Maryland, how they will just use you, have you out here with your butt out here, and then after they get that scene, they go on and they don't ever call you again, and they give the roles to white women.
Yeah. This is awful. Yeah, it's awful, man. But Shawn, I appreciate the time you spent with me on this, man. I kept you a little bit over an hour, but you stayed with me, so I appreciate it, buddy. And why don't you tell everybody some more about the books that are coming out?
Well, what's coming out on Halloween is Eternal Night, and Eternal Night is a vampire story. It's one that's action-packed, African American horror. I'm going to leave a link to it in the chat. And this one,
is it available for pre-order?
Yeah, it's available for pre-order on Kindle. I'm going to put the link to the pre-order on Kindle in the chat. And that's one you definitely want to pick up. If you're a Spinsterella fan, Matilda does make a cameo in this book. And it's a part of the SJS Direct universe. So if you want to pick that one up, you can pick that one up. And what's also coming out in November on Black Friday is E-Steam Blast from the Past, which follows up on E-Steam The Sands of Time. So you can pre-order that book, and that book features the first SJS Direct comic book and the pages that I want to use to try to get people interested in a possible Indiegogo for the future. So that's coming up on Black Friday. That's coming out on Black Friday. You can pre-order that book on Kindle, but the paperback will be available probably in November or before then. But those are the two books that are out then. And you can also pick up ISIS, the main event, that's available right now in paperback and Kindle format. This one just came back to Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. And you have John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, which is available on Amazon.com right now in paperback and Kindle format. This is also available on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play.
Most definitely, man. All right. Well, Shawn, thank you for being down with us, man, and being here on the channel. You're always welcome to come back to promote more books. And guys, I just want to let you all know you can also check out my book, Katrina. Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard. This is obviously the 15th anniversary of the Hurricane Katrina disaster. It was actually the worst disaster, not only in American history, but it was a complete failure on every level of government. And you guys can check that out. I wrote that while I was in college, and my first and only book as of now. But I got more books, another book on the way that I am in the development stages. I've actually finished at least over 50-something pages of it, so I'm nearly halfway through, and hopefully it'll be in time for the fall. And I will give you guys updates about that regularly when things become available. So, having said all of that, you guys subscribe to Shawn's channel. Buy the book, The Man Crisis. Excellent book. They've up to 400 sales, is it, or 500?
It's 400 going on 5. So it's
Okay.
like 410 right now or something like that. Trying to get it to 500 by the end of the year.
All right. Shawn, thank you for coming on, man, and we'll be in touch. We'll do this again probably next week if you want.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the show.
All right. You guys have a good night. This has been another edition of Gavin Richard Presents here on channel GBoo2786, as well as my YouTube channel, Gavin Richard. And thank you all who are watching on Facebook. Please donate to the Cash App, Gavin Richard Esquire, or Google Pay, gavin.grich1@gmail.com. Peace and love, family. I'll holla.